Hey everybody, it's John here, back with episode 5 of Beginner Woodworking with No Expensive Tools. Glad to see you here with me today. Hope you enjoy the video. Today we're going to make a special entryway key holder. I think you'll like it. You're going to need a cedar fence picket, about 25 inches of one anyway. You're going to need your jigsaw, a sanding block or power sander if you've got one. And let's get off to the races. Okay guys, first thing we're going to do is cut down our cedar fence picket a little bit. You're going to want a scrolling blade in your jigsaw. I'll show you the difference. This is the one we've been using to cut straight through wood with. And a scrolling blade is smaller so that you can make turns in the wood. You can see the difference. But that's what you're going to need for that. Swap your blade out. Clear off your bench. You're going to trim. There's no ears on this fence picket because I've already cut them, but you want to trim the dog ears off of your fence picket or square off the other end, whichever way you're going to do it. And you'll want to clamp this down to hold it so it'll be a lot smoother cut. Don't forget to get your tape measure. Measure out about, you know what, we'll go with about 21 inches. And that should be more than enough. But do your work layout, make your mark. Put your pencil on your mark, bring your square up. After you get it on your pencil, scribe your line. Check your measurement. 21 inches. Very good. After you get your board clamped down and your line marked, line up with your mark, bring your square up as a fence, hold it tight in place, and make your cut. Very good. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of sanding. First, we're going to take a sheet of 80 grit sandpaper and sand both sides of what we just cut. I'm going to use the power sander this time. I'm hoping you guys have gotten one by now. If not, you really should look into one. It'll make your life so much easier. But you can use your sanding block with it. It just takes a little bit longer and a little bit more work. You don't have to bear down on your power sander. You just let it do the work for you. Just go with the grain, forward and backwards along the grain. Don't go across it like this. Go up and down with it. And 80 grit will knock the roughest part down. Now that we've done our pre-sanding, we're going to want to plug our saw back up. And we're going to cut this into two 10-inch pieces. That's the reason we did it the way we did. That way you would have plenty of room for mistakes if you overshot or undershot or whatever. But you're going to lay it out and do your markup just like you always do. Make your layout line. Check your measurement. Make sure you got 10 inches. Okay, you got 10 inches. Move it over and clamp it down. Always clamp it down to be safe, guys. Make sure you have it far enough off the edge of your bench that your saw's not going to run into your bench, trust me. I've learned that lesson the hard way. Now, you know the routine from here. Line up, put your square down for a fence, and make your cut. Then you're going to repeat that process for the next piece. Now you're going to want to take your sanding block and knock down the slivers and the burrs you left from your cuts on your two pieces. And repeat that process with the other one. Okay, get you a pencil and a piece of paper and play around with some designs for a mountain range. About 4 or 5 points should suffice. You can even use your square for this, and then you're going to want to transfer it to your board. See what I mean? You'll want to transfer that picture to your board. You'll do it the same way, but you want to lay it out on a sheet of paper first just to see how it looks. Okay? Play around with the design until you're happy. Okay, friends, if you don't like all 45-degree angles for your mountains, you can take the straight edge of a board and line it up to make some of your marks like I did on the left and right sides. I used a straight edge board to bring them up and down, and then used the 45-degree angles for the rest of it. I got 6 peaks out of it. Experiment around with that for a few minutes and see if you find something that you like. Okay, guys, now it's time to cut our mountain shapes out. Make sure you've got your personal protective equipment on. These glasses might save your eyes. Or you can just look cool with them. We're going to use our jigsaw for this. We won't be using the square for a fence. We'll be doing it freehand, which is okay. You can do it. I believe in you. If you've not put your scrolling blade in yet, do so now before you start. It'll make the turns much easier. Cedar's pretty easy to cut. So just try to make you a starting point right here on this side. Work up to the angle of your line and then follow your line up all the way. repeat the process for the rest of the lines. Okay guys, so what you have should kind of look like a mountain range. You'll understand a little bit more about looking like a mountain range in a minute. And it should line up with your other board like this. So far, that's what we're going to have. Keep following along. Okay, now it's time to go back to sanding. Grab your sanding block or your power sander, whichever you are using. Go back over both pieces lightly with the 80 grit. After you do that, step down to 120 grit. And then step down to either 180 or 220 grit. I would rather do 180 personally, but I don't have any 180, so I will step from 120 to 220. That should be fine. When you start sanding with a power sander, it's definitely a good idea to wear safety glasses for sure. And it probably wouldn't hurt you to wear a dust mask either. This cedar, especially if you're sanding a lot of cedar, it's really rough on your lungs after you sand a whole bunch of it. Trust me, I learned that the hard way back in the spring. Now then, it is time to get started. Remember to plug up your tool. Lightly go over it with the 80 grit. Okay, and now you're going to want to do the same thing with the 120 and the 220. Alright guys, next step's going to be joining our two pieces together. Today I believe we're going to use some wood glue. I believe we'll use Type Bond 2 today, and I think we're going to use some dowels with it, so that way it'll give it a little bit more stability. Get your dowels and your wood glue. If you go to Harbor Freight, they have a doweling set that you can buy that has dowels. It has a drill bit with a stop collar on it, and a couple of these little centers here, so you can drill your holes in one side and just put them in it, and put your piece down on the other one and get you some center holes punched for the holes that go into that piece, so everything lines up. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the mountain piece and we're going to put the dowels in the bottom of it, and we're going to put that into the top of this instead of behind it. So you want to plug your drill up. That's my biggest problem, is remembering to plug in my tools. Check up our drill bit. Then we're set our collar so it's right around about half of a dowel. See what I'm saying? That way it'll all fit and be straight and square. You're going to aim right for the middle when you drill this hole. You want to kind of be easy because you don't want it to break or anything. This is a brad point bit, so you can get it on center pretty easy. Okay, now your centering pieces will go in. Like that. And then you're going to line it up where it needs to be on this one, on this board. If it's something that you can manage to hit with a hammer or a wooden mallet, do so. This one I'm a little bit afraid to, so I'm just going to apply enough pressure to try to get it being cedar. That should do. See, as you mash down, it'll leave impressions for you to drill into to line it up. You don't really want to drill all the way through this one, so you got to kind of watch what you're doing. Okay, now that you've got that done, your dowel holes should line up with a little bit of luck. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our hammer and our tight bond glue and our dowels. We're going to take the bottom piece first. We're going to put some glue in the dowel holes. And then we're going to line a little bead all the way down just to help make sure it stays. Because the wood glue is stronger than the wood itself. These might be tight if your shop has had any kind of dampness in it. Just peck them down in there. Get you a little piece of wood and your hammer. Be very careful because you can break your peaks. I've already had to fix one that I broke off. Get you a rag and wipe off your excess glue. I like these little paper shop towels. They're pretty good for this. I didn't figure they would be, but what can I say? I've been surprised. You can put a clamp on that and let it dry for the amount of time it says on your glue bottle. Okay, guys, been about 45 minutes or so, and I would say that the glue is fairly well set up enough that it's not going to squeeze out anymore. So what you do from this point, get you a piece of the last grit of sandpaper you used. We used 220, so do that and rub it along the glue joint there just to make sure that there ain't any glue covering the grain, because we're going to finish this one a little bit differently than we did the last one. Okay, we're going to try to stain this one just to do something different. Normally I would probably sugar booger bonbon this one, but you know, I want to do something different. I don't have too much experience with paint or stain, so I want to learn a little bit about stain. So let's give it a shot. Give your can a good shake and pop it open. Make sure you've got a stir stick around to give it a good stir too. Alright, that should do. You're going to want to either brush or wipe this on. These terry cloth covered staining pads they have at Harbor Freight that has 8 in a pack for just a few bucks seem to work really well, so that's what we're going to be using today. So we will dip it in the stain and we will start wiping the stain on. If it's a little bit thick wiping it on, it's okay because it's going to stand for a little while and then be wiped off. Make sure you're getting that corner real good. That's going to be a pain to do, but you can do it. I believe in you. You guys are doing so good. Okay, guys, while we're letting this stand for the rest of the time that it needs to stand before we wipe the stain off, I want to talk to you for a minute. These projects that we're doing, you do not have to just outright copy them. Take them and make them your own. Do your own things with them. There was a gentleman, his name was Brian Webb. He took the sconce from the last video and made a really awesome one and posted it on the Bearded Viking Facebook group. I will start up a Facebook group when I get to 200 subscribers. That way you guys can post your pictures and tell your stories to me and each other. Alright, let's wipe this stain and see what it looks like. Take your sponge or rag or whatever you're using and wipe it off. And look how nice that looks. I still think sometimes Sugar Booger Bonbon looks better, but honestly for this project, I think that's just about perfect right there. Now we're going to flip it over and do the bottom. Yeah, if I didn't mention it and you don't see it, don't forget to cover your workbench with plastic before you start doing this. Unless you want to stain your workbench, of course, and then that's fine. I'm using Rust-Oleum American Walnut stain. I've got to say I love the look of it. But we'll let that stain dry for another couple of minutes and then we'll put on a coat of shellac and see what we've got. Since this is a mountain range key holder, we are going to snow cap the peaks of the mountains. So just grab you a sheet of notebook paper and your favorite can of spray paint, and very lightly snow cap the peaks. Be extra careful not to make the paint run. Come around back and do the same. Just remember, it's meant to look like snowy peaks, so it doesn't have to be totally covered up, as you can see. Now, we're going to let that dry overnight since it's paint, and we're going to see, then we're going to add our finishing touches and see what we've got. I think this is going to be beautiful. Okay, guys, we've let the stain and paint dry overnight. If you have any runs in your paint, take you a sheet of your 220 sandpaper and just very lightly go over them. It will add to the aesthetic of a snowy peak. And for our final finish, we're going to use some shellac. If you don't know what shellac is, it is bug excrement from a certain bug that is mixed with denatured alcohol to make a nice, shiny, clear coat. Just one nice, sturdy coat along the grain. That is absolutely beautiful. Now all we've got to do is add hardware and then put some shellac on the bottom. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes for this shellac to set up, and then we'll flip over and do the bottom. Now, sometimes when shellac dries, you will get some white cloudy substance on it like that. If you do, add another coat of shellac, and the alcohol in the next coat of shellac will work that back up and let you start again. Otherwise, you could take some denatured alcohol and wipe it off completely and start over. After the mess I tried to clean up and couldn't, I decided to go ahead and just sand the whole thing down and restain it and repaint it. And I'm going to use a different finish besides shellac because I think there's something wrong with my shellac can. Okay, we're right back to where we were before the shellac now. Since I don't have any other kind of clear coat finish besides shellac and spar poly, I'm going to put spar poly on it. Oh, that's the spray paint. I'm glad I noticed that. I'm going to put some Helmsman spar urethane on it to make it look good. Hopefully we'll have better luck with this. Good morning, everybody. I let everything set overnight before I polyed it because I wanted to let the paint and stain dry good. And it wound up coming a storm, so my can of shellac might not be bad. It may just be in humidity from the storm. But if you leave something sitting overnight like this and you're going to be spraying it with poly or something like that, make sure you wipe the dust off of it first before you start spraying, because it'll leave a big nasty mess, big bucket spots and stuff. So get your can of spar poly, shake it up. The longer it's been setting, the more it needs to be shook, and follow the instructions on the can. It's the light coating to give it a shine. Okay, everyone, I reckon it's dry enough to go ahead and add the hardware. It's still just a little bit tacky, the poly is, but it sure does look nice. We'll go ahead and add the hardware to it, and if we have to make any adjustments, we will. And if you don't like having the longer shelf, you can make it with a shorter shelf, but I like having a bigger shelf that I can set a couple of certain things on. First thing we're going to do is add a couple of these sawtooth hangers. We're going to go in 1 inch from the end. Okay, 1 inch from the end is right there, and we will put our end of that right on the 1 inch. With the tackiness of the poly, it'll actually hold it in place while you check it. I can come in a little bit further. Okay, that's good. When I say an inch, I mean the very edge of your sawtooth, 1 inch from the end of your board, if I'm not making that clear. And then take your tacks. You got to be easy about putting your tacks in because you don't want to mess up a fully finished product. Press it in until it stays. Do the same on both sides. Make sure it's nice and even. Then take your hammer and peck it in. Going to want one more sawtooth hanger on the back of this, right around the middle. So just at the up towards the top of the piece. So just eyeball it and follow the instructions. Put your tacks in and peck them in with your hammer. That way it keeps it nice and balanced. Now, we've got some hooks. Some of these screw-in hooks. We'll put 3 or 4 along the bottom of this, about the middle. So just look for, just eyeball the middle. You don't have to measure it out. If it's a little bit closer to the back, that's okay. And just screw them in. And then just repeat that for the other 2. I'm going to put 3 on the bottom of this one. You could space them closer together and put 4 if you wanted to. After installing your hooks, touch up any damage you have, and you have you a nice wall shelf key hanger. Okay guys, after putting all 3 of those sawtooth hangers on, I put me a little fake wall together to see what it looks like hanging up. If you're going to make projects that hang on the wall, that's a good idea. I've got to say, this is really beautiful. There's a couple of more touch-ups that I'm going to have to do where I fixed it while the poly was wet, but if you wait till your poly dries, you won't have that problem. And let's hang our keys up on it. There we go. All right, there you go. There's your entryway shelf key holder. I hope you've enjoyed the product. Even though we had some problems this go around, we got to learn how to fix a few things, which is always a plus. Every mistake is just a chance to learn something new. Always remember that. Please be sure to, if you got value from this video, to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I should have another project or two coming out before Halloween, and there will be another short out pretty soon too that you might quite be surprised with. You guys have a great day.